Hello everyone, this is Wandering Tati. Welcome to another episode of the discussion series. The idea for this type of videos is to discuss a topic that's been on my mind lately and I think it's important to talk about, and make questions, explore different positions, and perhaps incite a respectful discussion in the comments. So the topic I have in mind for this occasion is that of positivity, more precisely toxic positivity, that seems to be surrounding us in the recent years. As someone who had an awful time during the pandemic for a variety of reasons, and who decided to turn over a new leaf and start again somewhere new, with all the issues and anxiety that brings, I have encountered many people who I know have the best intentions, but who are really overly positive about things, and they actually make me feel even worse. For instance, if they say that I have a wonderful CV and for sure I'm going to find my dream job really soon, and I don't seem to make that happen, then what's wrong with me? Or if I mention that I'm not doing so well emotionally at some point, and they say that, well, you had this opportunity to travel and move wherever you wanted to start a new life, then why am I feeling sad or anxious more often than not if I am one of the lucky ones? It seems like I cannot allow myself to experience any type of problems if I'm in a privileged position, which, trust me, I know I am. I understand that some people don't have the same options I did. But at the same time, it feels that because of that, I'm not allowed to feel bad about anything, and I should only tell people about the nice stuff or just keep quiet. And then, more generally, there are some people who are really over the top, and they might go as far as saying that we should all be grateful no matter what because the world is such a wonderful place and we can always decide how we are going to face our difficulties. You know, I'm going to be harsh here for a second. I feel like I have to say this because some people might need to hear this. The world isn't such a wonderful place. And disclaimer, I'm not saying at all that life is not worth living or that there are not aspects of nature and humankind that are indeed wonderful. But it isn't all rainbows and lollipops as some people make it to be. Life consists of more than beautiful sunsets, cute animal videos, or books that make you experience all these wonderful emotions. Indeed, all of those things exist, and many more, and they are the reasons why it's worth to stick around. But unfortunately, if we were to put things in a balance, then I'm pretty confident that the negative would outweigh the positive. And I'm of the opinion that not recognizing this, it's a problem in and of itself. Because if we acknowledge that things could and should be better, then at least we can try to change them. But if we are stuck in this position that the world is actually amazing and everything is fine, then we will leave things as they are. I know this is awful to hear, but there's people dying of hunger while we are deciding what to order for dinner. There's people dying of diseases that are absolutely preventable and curable in the most developed parts of the world. Some people are struggling to get to the end of the month, while there's some people who have more money than they or 10 generations of their family can spend. The world is a deeply unfair place. And I'm not saying that those things I mentioned are anyone's fault in particular, but they are there, and there is a sort of immorality to them that I think is worth noticing. We should feel like shit about situations like that, and strive from any position that we are in to contribute our grain of sand to make things better for all of us. But I digress. Now, going back to a positive attitude, it's not that I'm proposing nihilism. I'm not saying we should all be pessimists and think the worst of any situation. I understand that that might lead us to some sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. What I am trying to say is that the extreme opposite of that is not beneficial either. Having a perfectly optimistic and positive attitude no matter what doesn't seem to be the solution. We need to allow ourselves to experience all of our emotions. Don't deny any of them, and try to find the strategy and the balance that works best for you. There are indeed scientific studies supporting the idea that a positive attitude can improve your life in some ways. That's true. I found articles dealing with positivity from a standpoint of their relation with quality of life of cancer patients, mental health issues, or general likability of yourself as a person. But there are also studies that question these results and focus on the moral implications and consequences of this emphasis on the positive. For instance, we have this article by Rave which says, in emphasizing the positive, there may be two important consequences. Firstly, negative feelings may be marginalized or simply denied, a phenomenon which carries its own psychological implications, and secondly, when faced with a failure to recover, many people may interpret this as a moral failure, that is, they did not try hard enough. It is the writer's contention that such ideas can result in a sense of guilt and blame, which could be diminished if not eradicated if healthcare professionals were more careful to understand what is at stake when inculcating or endorsing an attitude of positive thinking. So there's plenty to read from a variety of perspectives when it comes to positive thinking. And then there's things that you should not read. You know, books like The Secret, which basically tells you that you should cut out from your life anyone who is being negative. And yes, people with cancer who are suffering and are probably going through the worst time of their lives and need you the most count as such. By the way, I made a whole video about that book. If you're interested, I will leave you the link. In my opinion, denying all issues and putting a blindfold so as not to see anything we don't like is not a way to live. In my research for this video, I read the book called, Toxic Positivity by Whitney Goodman, and written down a few ideas that I had in mind and she portrays nicely in the book. A key element I got is that sometimes we just want to be heard. We know that the other person is not going to fix the issue, and perhaps this is something that no one can fix, but we just want to feel accompanied and not invalidated. This is totally random, but it reminded me of this movie with Hugh Grant about a boy. The scene where the kid is dealing with some heavy stuff, like his mom's depression. And all that Hugh Grant's character can say is something along the lines of,
"Fucking hell."
And the kid actually feels much better somehow by listening to that curse word than if he would answer with some sort of cliche or platitude.
I didn't know why it swore like that, but it made me feel better. It made me feel like I wasn't being pathetic to get so scared.
It's hard, I know, but some things do not have a silver lining. They just don't, and we need to accept that. As I mentioned before, always feeling grateful or positive will prevent us from actually changing what's not right. And living like this adds an extra pressure for all of us that sometimes can become unbearable. In the book Smile or Die by Barbara Ehrenreich, she tells the story of how she got a diagnosis of breast cancer, and she was faced by all this pink ribbon toxic positivity, as she calls it. Encountering people who would even go as far as saying that having cancer was the best thing that could ever happen to them, because it helped them put things in perspective somehow and realize what's important to them. And alright, if you feel that way, I'm not gonna say anything to you. Part of the point of this video is that you should actually allow yourself to experience whatever feelings you have. I'm not gonna tell you not to express them just because I might not understand them. But what's scary is the unwillingness of some people to accept that others might have a different perspective towards things. The author mentions that at some point she got tired of reading about all this positivity in blogs from cancer patients and wrote a message stating that she was not feeling well and didn't see a positive side to her cancer. And most people's reactions were ruthless. And then there's this whole idea that the only way to get better in this type of situations is to face things with a positive attitude. which makes things for people dealing with such a disease much harder, because if they feel bad or angry or sad, they want to stop themselves, as they know that the only way to get better is to face this with a positive attitude. I'm going to read you some parts of this article from Ethics in Medicine, which is called Right Way to Do Illness: Thinking Critically About Positive Thinking, by McGrath, Jordans, Montgomery, and Kerridge. Two broad benefits are claimed for positive thinking. One is that positive thinking will enable the ill person to cope better with the experience of illness and the process of treatment. The other is that positive thinking will increase the likelihood of a good outcome, leading either to a cure or extended remission. Such benefits may appeal to patients with cancer because they provide them with a means of helping themselves. Neither of these benefits is clearly supported by the published work, however, and many studies are complicated by definitional problems. There is evidence to suggest that people with cancer who have an optimistic outlook and fighting spirit have a better quality of life than those who are pessimists and feel hopeless. There is also evidence that positive thinking may provide a sense of control in uncertain situations and reduce the incidence of depression. Positive thinking may have adverse consequences as well as benefits. If the quality of patients' thoughts is held to be critical determinant of their health outcome, the responsibility for cure also comes to lie with the patient. This can be empowering if things go well, but it can also lead to a sense of failure or guilt if things do not go well. It could possibly even cause someone's belief system to collapse, taking with it the reasons for choice or actions and the very basis of hope. The sense of loss, guilt, and despair that patients may feel in the face of relapse or disease progression may be exacerbated by the expression of disapproval by loved ones, carers, or other patients towards them for their failure to think positively enough. This disapproval may ultimately contribute to marginalization or abandonment of patients who do not embrace a positive thinking approach to their illness or who fail to manifest its benefits. An additional problem for clinicians is that given that the values and beliefs of a patient can contribute to a decision to refuse treatment or to choose to have it, positive thinking may lead patients either to reject potentially effective medical therapies in the belief that the power of positive thinking is sufficient, or to demand futile medical therapies in the belief that positive thinking will inevitably lead to a good outcome. The second task is to give permission for patients to express negative emotions such as fear and sorrow and let them know that confronting painful or difficult issues and planning for possible or probable bad outcomes is neither the same as giving up, nor does it spell the end of hope. Going back to Goodman's book now, I would like to share with you some recommendations she gives on how we could act in order to effectively help someone who is experiencing some trouble. If we tried to help and messed up, be that because the other person misunderstood or was not in a place to receive our help, we should refrain from using phrases like, "I was just trying to help, I didn't mean to hurt you, you're blowing this out of proportion. I'm just trying to be nice, can't you see that? I guess you don't want my help then. You took that the wrong way." Instead, she suggests, swallow your pride for a moment, even if you think they are being totally irrational and you don't see their side at all. Validate their perspective even though we might not agree, by saying things like, "I hear you and I want to understand more. It makes sense that you would feel, I appreciate that you shared this with me." Then repair, that is, acknowledge their feelings and what happened, apologize and take responsibility for your part, and make a plan to repair and prevent this from happening again. Finally, share your opinion. If the other person, once they felt heard and understood, is open to hear your side. And then she mentions 4 essential ingredients to have a good communication with someone who is experiencing some problems, which are curiosity, understanding, validation, and empathy. Curiosity means asking questions, being open to change, and knowing that we will never be done in getting to know ourselves and others. We should ask open-ended questions like, "Can you tell me more about?" or "I'm listening if you want to tell me about what happened today." You can also use active listening and include nonverbal cues like nodding, eye contact, and paying close attention to the conversation without distractions. Then, as far as understanding goes, is not assuming that you know how they feel just because you've been through a similar situation. Asking questions to make sure you understand how the other person feels. Like, it seems like this was the hardest part for you, yes? Continuing to let them share until you both feel like an understanding has been reached and not rushing the process. Then validation includes phrases like, it makes sense why you feel this way. I get why you would react that way. That is an understandable feeling to have, especially in this situation. Again, you don't have to agree with what they are saying. You just need to validate their point of view. And finally, empathy. This means listening and eliminating distractions, sharing about a time when you felt the same way and normalizing their reaction, refraining from offering suggestions and just allow them to be with their feelings, thanking them for sharing with you, and continuing to reach out and connect. This isn't a light topic, I know, and it is by no means easy to deal with. And I'm not saying that I absolutely know how to deal with people who are in horrible pain or who are suffering for different reasons. And I know I'm guilty of answering with nice sounding cliches when people just open their heart to me about problems that I cannot really help them with or that don't have any solution at all. But I've come to the conclusion that it's fine to not say anything in particular and just letting the person know that we are there for them in whichever way they need. I think it's perfectly fine to reply with, that sucks, or
Fucking hell.
if that's all you've got. As long as you are there for the person you care about, that is enough. So next time we are presented with a situation like this, let us all try our best not to respond to people opening their hearts to us with a phrase that could be placed in a poster with a kitten. That is all I've got for this topic at the moment. I hope you found some value in this video. If you did, please let me know by hitting the like button. And please let me know about you in the comments. Were you faced with a situation in which you didn't know how to respond to a loved one? Were you a victim of this toxic positivity at some point? Please let me know kindly if you disagree with my views on this. This is something that I've been pondering on for a while, and I would really like to hear all perspectives on it. My goal is to always take the most compassionate approach, so if you think there are better ways to do so, then please let me know. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you'd like to see more videos like this. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Until next time!